you guys are giving us the tools to install it, to take it apart, to cut it up, and like to vacuum it, all those kinds of things.
Yeah.
But what about just getting that stuff and working safely on the job?
Yeah. Well, no, I've seen your videos. You lift some pretty heavy stuff, so
I am very
no doubt
strong.
about that.
I want to put that out there. All right, hey guys, welcome to the Make Trades Great Again podcast. I'm Eric Ani. This is Andy Mickelson, and we are joined by John Carl. Can you say your last name for us, John?
Jarzombek. Yeah.
Jarzombek, and you're from Milwaukee.
It throws everybody
off.
Yeah,
it is. Look, I'm Norwegian. I can't speak that I don't know how to put all those consonants together. My tongue is way too thick.
It happens. My mother's also Norwegian, so I got a little bit of that too. Christiansen was my...
So she was on the fence to marry your dad, is what you're telling me.
Beautiful last name, had to convert to Jarzombek, so...
Yeah, right at the top of the alphabet.
Yeah.
No, John, you're joining us here at AHR. It's been a fun show for all of us and a lot of people in the audience. You know why I think that they sit down and listen, though, is mostly because you're here. And second to that is because there's chairs for them to sit in. So everybody give yourselves a round of applause for the chairs. You found it. You found the chairs. There's a beer garden right next door, too.
That's helpful.
People listening to this a week from now are going to be like, what is he talking about?
Yep.
They're kind of used to it, though.
Yeah.
Well, you guys Milwaukee's at AHR kind of again, because you guys were absent for a little bit, but with some pretty big announcements this week.
Yeah, huge ones. Yeah, we've got a whole bunch of stuff going out this first half of the year, so we're really excited about it.
It is pretty cool. Today we stopped by the booth real briefly, but we've seen the stuff online. We've been seeing videos. We've got our hands on it a little bit. I have actually used at Milwaukee's headquarters in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, the roll groover, but you've got that on display today for everybody to see at a heating show, which makes a ton of sense to me.
It does. It's probably the best place to release it, right?
Yeah, we're pretty excited about it.
Yeah.
A
lot of heating pipe, a lot of heating and cooling, chilled water systems, heating systems out there using groove pipe, like your Vic pipe, stuff like that. Yeah,
right.
Are we allowed to say names of pipe manufacturers? I don't know.
We on the groove side, we work with pretty much all pipe manufacturers as well as coupling manufacturers. So.
Okay, so we don't want to single one of them out as being the best.
Well, no. We comply to AWWA C606 standards, so
that's what I was thinking. That's what I had written down in my notes was AWWC.
It rolls right off the tongue.
It does. That's it. It's in my front pocket all the time. That standard.
There you go. Yeah.
So, not just a roll groover. We're going to get into each of these, but I saw too that you guys have a recovery.
Yeah, vac and recovery pump now, creating a full cordless service system. Quick, easy to get in, get out. Really kind of completes that second half of where we wound up, a couple of years ago.
So now not only can you got recovery and you have evacuation, so you could do install, service, change out, all with just battery. What do you think about that?
I think we get so many of these applications where, the code says, hey, you got an outlet within 5 feet of the unit. Well, maybe 10%.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So how many times have you guys been on a rooftop unit where you got a cooler condenser or something like that, and there's no outlet there, or it doesn't work? So then, everybody's got a little jumper, right?
Well,
plug in an alligator clip into the disconnect and hope for the best. And
no, nobody does that.
Nobody ever.
Well, there's also a lot of people working from home these days. A lot of stuff going on, a lot more power going into these houses. The worst is, plugging into one of those and then popping a breaker. Client's home, you run into those situations where all of a sudden, now you're causing kind of distress in the household and stuff like that. So
yeah, distress usually comes in the form, like my experience has been that we're looking for an outlet for service, and I have to unplug all the Christmas lights that were still in from last year. There's like a 6-way splitter tied into like 2 other splitters and that kind of thing. Like that's really what we're dealing with. Let's be honest.
I usually tell my guys to look for the deep freeze and just unplug that and use that power source because it's
whatever. Just leave it.
It stays dark where we're at for a longer period of time too. So a lot of light usage and things like that. So
I was just hooking up a heat pump the other day, and it was it's wintertime, right? And so I'm hooking it up, and I look over and I'm like, new construction, by the way. I thought, oh my God, there's a service outlet right there. It was so
where it's
nice.
supposed to be.
It was right where it's supposed to be. It's like
perfect.
Yeah, it's like, wow, I think we've been asking for this for decades.
Mm-hmm.
Right. That's pretty cool. So recovery pump, what was how do you guys identify what you're going to look for in product development? What are your first touch points where you say, you know what, we need to make that? Because I'm sure you get no less than 1,000 recommendations all the time on what people want you to make.
Yeah, there's definitely a long runway of stuff that, we're looking at, the businesses looked at. But the genesis, a lot of that is, if you look at the booth right now, there's just a ton of different solutions kind of across the board.
Yeah.
And a lot of that comes from, every Milwaukee product person in NPD or new product development is getting out there, making sure they're spending the time learning, not only about the application that we're trying to serve for that specific project that we're working on, but one of the big things that we always talk about is taking a step back and looking at the overall process. So a lot of what we do is to make every contractor we work with more productive on our battery platform. So, taking a step back, we see things all the time. Time taken to, outlet hunt, but then also a lot of physical stress involved with some of the connection methods we've gone after. As an example, Groover was a big part of that with, manually cranking and always having to touch moving components and things like that. So, what's really cool is kind of taking that step back view. We can see, number of trips to the van, what are you guys grabbing? What is the hard parts of that application? And then, come up with solutions to solve those that make sense and, ultimately improve and speed up the process.
I think that's one of the things that's, kept me on the Milwaukee platform is that the tools do have a definitive function.
Yeah.
Right? There's so many of them, the copper tubing cutter, those kinds of things. They're, it's another tool, but it's got its definitive purpose and it does a really good job with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's not quite,
it's
got some competitors that have some more gimmicky-ish type attachment base that it just kind of seems like,
Well, we're trying to make the best on those platforms, right? We got M12, M18, and MX. So we've got a pretty deep runway and platform to work off of. We're very committed to those platforms. I think the M18 Forge release was a great example of that. That you don't have to buy a new tool set in order to get into that. Maintains the M18 platform, but extends power and capacity to places it hasn't been before. So the ability to use those, and then our electronics are constantly updating as well. So what might not have been possible 5 years ago is going to be possible 5 years from now.
Right. So you talk about electronics, and some of the tools I've been most impressed with aren't necessarily new.
Sure.
Mostly, don't take that the wrong way. I haven't tried the new tools that we're talking about today.
Yeah.
The roll groover, the evacuation pump, or recovery pump. Sorry.
Yeah.
I look at the core drill and the MX fuel line, stuff like that. These are tools that are honestly, and I've talked about it openly in videos. I've talked in conversation with Andy before. Look, this is I don't know what Milwaukee did, but this is a level of quality and functionality that's kind of up above, beyond what we're used to with just regular cordless tools. And I think that's what we're seeing. I've used the vacuum pump and I feel like it's so simple. It works so well. And it just feels like we're kind of looking at kind of a new frontier with Milwaukee. You guys are really designing in a space that you haven't been. So maybe the quality levels are just kind of not what we're used to. They're not that the stuff out there is bad, but it's more robust. Maybe it's the technology you guys are using, the materials. I'm not sure.
Some of that for sure. Yeah, absolutely. A lot of it too goes back to kind of just process evaluation, right? We're seeing all this stuff, where we're at, weather can be pretty rough for, half the year and things like that. So we gotta look at, not only the application storage, how is this going to actually get stored in between jobs? And, sometimes, that can be a pretty, rough experience for a tool, depending on, where it's going to be stored and how that's
transport, everything like
Yeah.
that. On-site storage versus moving on and off the vehicle, getting it into the shop, that kind of thing.
Oh, totally. Rainstorms, snowstorms, we get a little bit of kind of both sometimes, thunder snows,
Yeah.
it can be a variety of things, with a lot of our plumbing tools, it's opening open lines, having residual water in there. Maybe the main valve has failed, and,
Right.
you may know some of that getting into it, but it might be one of those where you just have to complete it that way. And, it has to survive all those environmental factors.
It's fascinating. It's fascinating.
Yeah, it's interesting to see that you can take, some of those mechanical tools like that, in the 10 years ago,
Yeah.
run it underneath the faucet and it's dead, and now it's like, oh, well, we use this
Oh, it's
M12 tubing cutter is like absolutely hammered. I keep going back to that, but
Yeah.
it's one of those tools that it's not a big price point. It does a good job of it, but you look at the operating environment that it's in, like you said, and it's
totally. Yeah. I mean, we our culture is very deep, and, we talk a lot about being candid, and sometimes, that means saying things that aren't, always, popular, but then always never settling. And that's a big part of kind of our framework is, even tools that have been out there for some time, those are constantly seeing improvements as well. So, we're making sure that we're taking all that new tech and constantly rolling it out, updating our tool set, always evaluating where we are. We were on a talk a while back, and we were talking about 2-inch copper tubing cutter. And, at the time I couldn't talk about it. But, that was another great example of, we were seeing that application come up. We're there. We hear the feedback. So everything that you guys are posting, talking about, we've got guys in field every week. There are guys, Milwaukee employees that are on job sites right now as we're talking. And a lot of that is observation, making sure that we fully understand what that is when we get into a project, so that that final result exceeds expectations, makes us the number one reason, contractors support us.
I'm glad you brought up the job sites, working with people out in the field with your tools. I've had the privilege of being at, Milwaukee events, and thank you for inviting us back each year. It's been great. But people listening and people sitting here right now, they haven't been sitting there and get the explanation, like, how did you prove this tool and what were the steps there? And I think it's fascinating. So ultimately, what you guys are doing is not just identifying a tool that there's a need for how you can make something better, but starting at that process. And then once you have a tool to hand somebody, you guys are doing this with real contractors out in the field, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Are they all over the country, or how is that kind of
everywhere, internationally as well?
Okay.
Yeah. So we've got a huge range of product folks that operate in new product development. They are scheduled weekly to go out, review applications, things that, a lot of times it's, if you're in plumbing, you're seeing that stuff. And a lot of times those lead to other things, which is a big deal. I think the focus really is on process, because what we found is that if we can eliminate those roadblocks or barriers to some of those jobs that are maybe not as fun to do, we can speed up those processes a lot faster, create more opportunity for the guys working that. And a lot of times that can also come in a physical sense. There's some jobs that are just really hard on shoulders, arms, wrists, backs, eliminating some of those thresholds as well. And, trying to streamline that process as much as possible. So
I think I'm just gonna put this out there for the person that they're just dying to ask this question, is how they get to be part of your testing program. And what I want to tell them is they have to follow Mechanical Hub on Instagram. That's the first thing. That's like the first qualification.
We watch comments from all over the place. So, I don't think that's a secret to anybody. That's often, on a lot of different social media platforms, but we're keeping our ear to the ground there. A lot of this comes from different personal relationships we've established, but then also, we work with a ton of companies all over the country. And, sometimes the names come up through guys that we know that, hey, I don't do that a whole lot, but I know somebody who does. And, there's not like a qualification period or anything like that. A lot of times we're looking to talk to everybody. So, We want to know, what those pain points are, so we can go after them.
Yeah. It's interesting that I think just to see that development, though, kind of like you said, the roll groover comes out, and I go,
totally.
Oh, wait a minute! I guess I never even thought about having a portable roll groover on that aspect. It's always been a pipe machine. It's always been a stationary machine.
But you don't have to pull out the rigid 300, or you don't have to do the manual on the tri stand kind of thing.
Yeah,
which is really what is done. That was the only alternative that I know of. I'm not sure if there was other tools. Maybe there were.
Every one of those tools forces the operator to interact with some sort of ratchet, or we saw a lot of guys like holding pipe and trying to keep the tool from tracking or walking.
Right.
Touching moving components. This goes all the way back to our threaders or pony threaders. You used to have to hold your hand on a spinning die head in order to engage it onto the pipe. That's not exactly a comforting thing to do. Touching anything that's moving like that can be a hazard. So it's one of the innovations that was built into that tool, and that's another good point, right? Like, it's not always just the obvious thing of, okay, we don't want a guy to touch a moving die head. Well, that the kind of previous versions of a pony threader, they're known for pony threaders because they'd kick. So we integrated auto stop with that, a side handle. We've taken that further and realized that the bulk of that weight's at the front of that tool, so we've reduced the overall weight by integrating aluminum die heads into that, reducing that by roughly half. So just making the overall process more ergonomic, faster, but also there's a safety component that comes along with that as well.
Right.
So
I get told all the time in the comments that I'm, like if I get caught posting something where I'm threading pipe, like I'm a total moron because I should press everything. It's crazy, which is funny because for years and years, all I did was press things and get told, why aren't you threading it? So that it changes all the time. We have to be able to do everything that comes up in front of us with the tools we have, right? So like sometimes you might be threading on a day because you just didn't have the right fittings or the right tools on hand for that exact moment. I'm talking like service, repair, that kind of stuff.
Well, and a lot of these tools cross multiple trades, right? Like threading, for example, is also huge in rigid metal conduit for
electrical work.
And, so if you visit our booth, one of the walls we have, kind of shows where we've come over the last 10 years. We're in not only press in a huge way. We've also expanded our threading selection. So now we've got our 2 pony threaders as well as our MX tool, which is really a great production level tool for large job sites. And then obviously the roll groover is brand new, but we're also in PEX expansion. So we've got a pretty broad offering now of different connection tools, and also support tools that go along with that, right? Copper tubing is a big one. Jack Fisher over in the booth right now is demoing a steel pipe cutter that it provides the cleanest cuts up to 1 inch on steel pipe. So there's another one, right, of all that prep time taking to prep that end, is significantly reducing that amount of time by creating a clean square cut.
Right.
And fast too, seconds, not minutes or focus of trying to keep, your saw aligned.
So. Right.
Yep.
Well, I mean, but why a steel tubing cutter when you could just use a portaband?
Well, we sell those too, and you can definitely make a good cut on that.
No, I'm just getting a little surly. Like these are the kinds of things you see in the comments, right?
No, but this is a great one, right? We talked about process.
Yeah.
So we're out there, there's hacksaws, sawzalls, bandsaws. We make all these tools as well.
Absolutely.
But there's also a ton of, you go into a service application, there is a number of things in the way of that potentially. So, when we looked at the design of that steel pipe cutter as an example, we looked at the zones of where you would need to access, and then form factored that so that you don't have any potential for overcut, or if it's a really tight space, you might not be able to fit a bandsaw. Now you can go in that really tight window and be able to cut those pipes cleanly without, struggling to do so.
Right.
So
right.
That's pretty cool. When we came by the booth there, got to see that in operation.
Yeah. It's fast.
Yeah.
It rips right through. So
the amount of new tools that are coming out from Milwaukee seems to kind of fluctuate here and there. One year we'll see just a ton of them. The next we see some really really significant launches like this roll groover.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the recovery though. Like, where do you see the AC Service Tech and the tools in their hands? Where do you see Milwaukee fitting into that as time moves forward?
You know, there's, I think,
No, you can't talk.
yeah,
Okay, so-
yeah.
Okay, so I should acknowledge that. I know I can't ask him like, "What are you working on now?" Because that's not an answer anybody that works for Milwaukee has permission to answer, or a question you have permission to answer. So I'm not looking for that info. But
man.
like, where do you see just kind of big picture? Like, I know you're going to try to look at the challenges and make things safer.
Yeah.
Kind of where do you see that roadmap right from today moving forward?
Extensive. Would probably be the one word I'd use to describe it. We got a lot of things cooking at Milwaukee right now that we're really excited about. I don't want to give you guys the same slogan from Pipeline, but
I know
the truth is we really are just getting started in this space, and we're really excited about the roadmap we have. I think you guys will be too when we start to talk through that and make that a little bit more public. But no, this is we take a pretty unique approach to this, and I think that's one of the reasons why we've come up with some of these really cool solutions. Is that we're not looking at it in a vacuum. This is really thinking about the start to finish, setup to clean up, even storage post use as well. And how do we improve each one of those elements to make that the best solution possible? And you look at when you start really zooming out on that, we got in, with the vac pump, and then, from there we've kind of grown not only on our understanding of that business, but then also our understandings of the problems, that you guys run into on a regular basis. So
On the vac pump and the recovery machine, those are all A2L compliant.
Yep. Yeah. Everything new is A2L compliant. So,
Yep.
we're having to adjust with things as well. And, we're trying to plan for that and make sure that, we're ahead of those trends as well. So,
Well, okay, so my roadmap for the future in Milwaukee Tools and like what I'm dealing with.
Lay it on me, man. Yeah.
Oh man, this wasn't on the script. You ready?
Yeah.
I bring it up at Pipeline. Pipeline is an event that Milwaukee puts on. They invite some people throughout the industry, whether they're media or just tradespeople. There's a lot of people that get to attend that event. It's an invite only. It's very cool. I've brought up in the past a few times. I know it's not your product category, but it touches on the people who are using and looking for your products.
And it's our group too. So.
It's material handling. Like I'm passionate about, like, I am not getting any younger. And every time I come home from a long day on a job doing an install, I do a lot of boiler work. These things are just, I feel like every model just gets heavier and heavier. And maybe it's just me, I'm not sure, but it's probably me. But like moving materials around on the site, getting them off of our vehicles, storing them, things like that. I look at Milwaukee and I think that there's a big open doorway for you guys to enter into that space. And you guys are giving us the tools to install it, to take it apart, to cut it up, and, like to vacuum it, all those kinds of things.
Yeah.
But what about just getting that stuff and working safely on the job?
Yeah. Well, no, I've seen your videos. You lift some pretty heavy stuff. So
I am very
no doubt
strong.
about that.
I want to put that out there.
But we like to say we're into the demolition, rough-in, installation, and then maintenance of those items.
Right.
I think that the part that comes along with that is the workflow. So.
Yeah.
We've also see some of the problems it takes. Water heater is a great example. Regular application for service plumbing, and a lot of times either those tanks aren't fully drained or they're quite heavy. They can weigh a lot. So seeing two guys trying to haul that up out of a basement as an example is not easy to watch when you've got one guy down low, one guy up high. Or
the fact that we have to have two guys to do some of this work simply because we don't have the right tools in our arsenal that have made it convenient. Like I have a stair climbing dolly, right? And like this thing's battery powered, but it's not running off an M18, which I kind of wish it were. It would be a lot easier,
Right.
I wouldn't have to plug it in at the shop every time I'm not using it.
Yeah. No, it's... along with everything we're doing, I think, the steel pipe cutter is a really great example of, a support tool for a lot of those connection applications as well. So, we've spent a lot of time and hours working on those connection tools. I think, and the sport tools have come along kind of with that. I think that, you'll also see a lot of those in the future as well. So
a lot of the cool stuff you guys are doing too is, I know not your category, but the gloves, the safety equipment, the new hard hat accessories, stuff like that. It's not maybe tools like the hard hat stuff I'm not using all the time, but I look at it, I think,
bump cap though might be
what's that?
Bump cap might be a good option.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, no kidding. Yeah. I should have a hard hat on just to work in these basements sometimes.
Well, that's a great example, right? Like we knew, guys going into service applications weren't, wearing hard hats, but you still might, we've got several basements in Wisconsin that are, not 6 foot, 7 foot high ceiling. They're bigger than a crawl space maybe, but they're not high. And, you're on site, you see guys, hitting their head or, other parts of their body, that's a really great example of, innovation in PPE that, we've started to bring out as well.
Yeah. The PPE lineup has expanded a lot. If people listening don't know that, you guys offer pretty much from start to finish everything you need except for like hazmat. You got some really good gloves we can actually work with now. For years, I thought that work gloves were not from Milwaukee or any other brand in particular, but they were just cumbersome and hard to use. It's gotten a lot better with the technology. I think you guys have found out a lot of solutions there.
They're starting to get, the high dexterity gloves as an example, right? Like, it's great protection, but then also, you can actually feel and really work with those in a great way. So
that's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. Well, there's a big red booth in the middle of the floor out there. It says Milwaukee over, guys. If you haven't stopped there, I do encourage you to.
Yep. A lot of cool stuff going on. There was busy.
You guys,
Oh gosh, I feel like we've been running for 2 full days now. I don't think I've sat down except for now. So
well, you're welcome.
Yeah, it's really exciting.
No, we do appreciate you coming on, guys. Or John, I do appreciate it. Yep. Andy, you have anything else to add before we wrap this baby up?
I think one last thing though is like we carry everyone on our team and elsewhere in Milwaukee carries a ton of passion for what we do.
Absolutely,
this is something that we are really excited about as well, and it gets us up in the morning. It's the reason why we go out. We love being there. We love seeing what we can do to improve the lives of all of our operators. So.
I'm excited to see what's next from Milwaukee. I really am. I mean that. It's like every time I turn around, I think, what? They made that? That's crazy.
I think there's some stuff out there that will surprise you and excite you as well.
It's an M18 truck. See, I can never. I tried getting it, but unflappable. Unflappable. I appreciate it, John. Thanks for joining us, man.
Of course, guys. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Appreciate it.